Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Carboni. I'm with the admissions office at MIT Sloan. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're here to talk about the intersection of healthcare at MIT and MIT Sloan and the opportunities that are available at the Institute. So tonight with me I have some students. We have some that are having trouble logging on, and they'll be popping in hopefully momentarily or joining people in one of the rooms below. But to just start with who we have now, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, your name, your year, what you're involved in on campus, what you did before Sloan, and what you're currently doing, that would be great.
Cool. Want me to start?
Yeah.
So my name is Vic Lanio. I'm a second-year MBA student. Prior to Sloan, I worked in consulting, so I spent the 5 years before Sloan mostly working at McKinsey doing mostly healthcare provider strategy work. I also kind of co-founded a healthcare not-for-profit here in Boston, and am at Sloan to transition to healthcare entrepreneurship. So I've been working the last year or so with a couple digital health companies, one being WellFrame, which is kind of an earlier stage startup, and the second one being CuraSpan, which is a kind of more established healthcare IT company.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica, and I'm a first-year MBA here at Sloan. Prior to Sloan, I was working in the healthcare industry. So after college, I started working at a healthcare consulting company called IMS Consulting Group in San Francisco, mostly working with biotech companies. And then after consulting, I went into industry and I started working at a medical device company. So I started working at Abbott Laboratories, and I worked in their regulatory affairs group there. So I worked a lot on submissions to the FDA and to get CE mark in Europe and in other countries around the world. And then actually, what I think is a little bit unusual, but I did it anyways, prior to Sloan, while most people travel and enjoy their summer, I actually was doing a pre-MBA internship, and I was working in business development for a pharmaceutical company. So I focused on licensings and acquisitions, and they were primarily looking for a new product to license or acquire. So I was helping them with their partnering. And so that's my background, and now I am in the healthcare club focusing on curriculum and also on administration.
Thank you very much, Victor and Jessica. Like I said before, we do have a couple more students joining us, so we'll have them introduce themselves when they get here. If you guys just want to start by talking a little bit about the healthcare club, if one of you wants to do a healthcare club overview and what it is that your mission is and what you guys have been up to. And also, anyone that's watching this, if you want to use the Q&A function on the left-hand side to ask some specific questions, please type in your questions now, and we can have a bunch ready to go when we're ready to start taking the questions. So the Q&A function, please. Thanks.
Okay, so overview of the healthcare club. The healthcare club is the student-led group that it kind of stitches together all the different resources on campus. And outside in the, we just got Paul's joining me, so we'll introduce him in a second. But so the healthcare club pulls everything together. It links all the student groups to the administration, the faculty. It also pulls in groups like MIT Hacking Medicine, the Media Lab, a whole bunch of other things that are around us at the MIT kind of world here. And we host a lot of events, so there are a lot of events that help. Actually, I think we're going to get into that a little bit later, but some of them are about helping students get jobs. Some of them are this big conference that we have every year that we can talk about in a lot more detail, but that's coming up in February. And I don't know, am I missing anything else?
Why don't we have Paul give a brief introduction and let him introduce himself, and then he can go do the overview as from his perspective too.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Paul Cappellucci. I'm a 2016, so second year MBA. I graduated from Boston College in 2009. After that, I did 5 years of consulting, mainly sort of strategy consulting for life science companies. And so that's kind of why I got into the healthcare space. I spent my last summer at Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, which is a local biotech company here. Really cool company. Tons of Sloanies there, so I can get more into that if people are interested in hearing about that experience. And then I'm not sure sort of exactly what Vic went into from a club overview, but really the club is kind of composed of two sort of main pieces. There's sort of the main club that does a lot of different things, from the recruiting front, from talking with prospective students that want to know more about what it's like to be into healthcare here at Sloan, organizing speaker series and other learning events, doing company visits to get a sense of what the companies around the area or even at the West Coast look like. And then sort of the other side is the conference piece, and that's really focused on our big annual conference in February. And there's a lot of ways to get involved with that, whether it's from sort of helping come up with a lot of the different content for the conference, marketing the conference, raising money for the conference, doing operations. So sort of whether with the club or the conference or a combination of both, there's sort of really a lot of different things that the healthcare club touches.
Great.
We
Thanks.
also have our last.
I was going to say, did Maddie make it over yet? So, hi, Maddie. So, usually, Sloan students aren't that late, so we apologize, but they are usually a little late. But
yeah, usually we start, Sloan time is 5 minutes after, not 9 after, so I'm late. But hi, my name's Maddie Green. I'm a first year. Before coming to Sloan, I spent 2.5 years in healthcare IT at Athena Health, working on creating custom pieces of our application. And I'm actually going back to Athena, but trying to branch out my experiences in the healthcare realm while at school.
great, thanks. So, we had a little overview of the healthcare club. Does anyone want to speak to specific events that happen, or do you cover most of them?
I mean, I can talk to a little bit more detail about sort of some of the roles in the conference, which is really our biggest event. We also had a recent event which was pretty exciting for us. One of our big initiatives this year is to get sort of more engaged with the alumni community. So about 2 weeks ago, we had a breakfast with we had about 30 to 40 alumni show up, which was a really good turnout. Even a lot of the alumni said they're surprised that the healthcare club has grown from 5 to 10 when they were there to over 100 now. So that's sort of one of our big events that we had in the fall and hope to have again in the spring and going forward. Last year, and I think we're doing this the same this year, in January, there's a trek out to the West Coast, and whether or not you want to move out to the West Coast and sort of join a company out there or not, it was something that I did, and it was a really great experience, and I recommend any of the treks. We do Boston treks as well, because it's a really great way to learn about the different companies, and whether or not if it's IT, and I was interested in pharma, it was still good for me to see what different company cultures were like, and really you can have a company do a presentation on campus, which is a lot of the things the CDO organizes, but getting to step foot in the company, meet other people, see the culture, I thought was very valuable, and that's sort of one of the big things the club does. And then I mentioned the conference, and I think we probably have 15 to 20 students doing a few hours a week from the beginning of the semester and then up through the conference. And actually my specific role is working with the panels. So we have 4 panels at the conference, and the student and then individual panels will have student leads. So those students get to decide what the panel topic is. So what is a topic that you think is really interesting in the industry? We've got devices, we've got sort of analytics, and using how do we use patient data, and with all the electronic medical records and real-time patient monitoring, how do we put all this data together and create sort of the next wave of companies to use these analytics and progress and help the patient outcomes. And we'll also have a panel on data analytics for pharma. How are pharma companies using this data? So as students, we came up with these different topics, and we'll recruit panelists, and it's a great way to one, hear about a topic you find interesting, and two, you're really getting to network and meet some of the thought leaders in the industry in a specific topic area that can really go from pharma to IT to tech, and it really is whatever you want to make of it. So I think that's been a really good role. And then some people are interested in more of the fundraising, and that's great because you get to go meet a lot of different people at different companies, and it is sort of a pitch, that we're pitching the conference, and it's a great experience sort of telling a quick 2-minute story about what the conference is and why a company might benefit from it. So, I mean, if there are other specific things that people are interested in hearing about, there's we do a lot of, I guess everything we do in some sense is an event, but those are some of the big things that we get involved with.
Talk about the pitch competition.
Yeah, and actually this year we have a new element to the conference that Vic's actually leading, and he can talk about that.
Sure. So this year is the first time we're doing what we're calling the MIT Sloan Healthcare Innovations Prize. It's a spin-off of the healthcare conference, and it's a pitch competition that has $30,000 worth of prizes, and it's we're opening up the applications to people that are from the engineering schools to the business side of things to really wherever you're part of the MIT or Harvard communities, and it's something that we had heard a lot of interest in last year, and we just kind of decided to start it this year. Went around, we talked to a bunch of VCs that were interested in funding innovation and partnering with MIT to bring entrepreneurs kind of out of the woodworks to kind of present their ideas to the world, and we're really excited. That's going to be the night before the conference this year in February. So we have that's pretty much the high level of it, but if anyone's interested, applications are open through the end of the year.
Great, thanks. So let's take some questions now. With first question, can you describe the types of students that join the club? Is it mostly individuals who have a strong healthcare background, or a mix of experienced and new individuals in the industry?
Sorry, we were deciding whether or not the three of us are kind of hogging the conversation in our one camera world over here. So while we were trying to figure out logistics, I also only caught the first half of the question. So I apologize for that. It was about what type.
Can you just describe the types of students that join the club? Are they people that have experience in healthcare, or are they a mix of experienced and new individuals that want to break into the industry?
It's all over. So we have a lot of students that have deep backgrounds in healthcare from all over healthcare is such a broad industry. It's I think it's like 18% of the U.S. economy, and so we have people that are really deep in pharma, we have people that are really deep in healthcare, IT, digital health, and we have people who really are interested in healthcare and want to break into the industry. And so it's helpful to have both sides there, because we have people who can help you learn about what it actually means to work at a biotech company where they're going through like a drug development type of a process, or what it means to be working, when your economic buyer is an ACO or someone that's taking on these new risk-based contracts in healthcare, which is pretty unique to healthcare in a lot of ways. And so the people who join the club are really all over the map. We have people who aren't even interested in healthcare that join the club and hang out with us and come to our events, and it's a fun group of people at Sloan, and the idea is really to kind of help people move into the industry and transfer to different parts of the industry, and that's, I guess, what we're all about. Anything else?
Yeah, so I think one way that the club has really been able to help other students who maybe don't have as much of a healthcare background, or maybe have very specific focus in one particular part of the healthcare industry, say if you just had experience in biotech, maybe wanted to move into provider organizations or payers, then what the healthcare club is able to do is offer kind of like a healthcare 101 series, in which second-year students or faculty students with a lot of deep expertise in those areas are able to teach these sessions on payers, on providers, on biotech, med device, health tech, entrepreneurship, IT, and so it really helps there be like a collective base of knowledge in which students can learn from other students, learn from faculty, learn from alumni. And so that was kind of the Healthcare 101 event that we had earlier this year. And then most recently, we also have like a case prep session for students who are more interested in, say, going into healthcare or life science consulting, or students who want to just prep for their interviews either for summer internship or for full-time internships. It's really a supportive community that wants to help students really succeed.
Great, thanks. Next question, this was directed towards Victor, because you mentioned the nonprofit entrepreneur side of healthcare, and what kind of support or resources has the Healthcare Club afforded you to pursue that interest that you might not have encountered otherwise?
Well, so there are a lot of things too, and it's not just with the Healthcare Club. The Healthcare Club facilitates a lot of things, but I would say the Healthcare Club helped me, network around, outside of kind of my narrow kind of payer provider space and appreciate the finer things of the, the biotech and pharma side of the world. And there's also a lot of opportunities. My internship, I think what we're calling them now is winternships, is through the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Club. So, which is, there's a huge overlap between people who are in the Healthcare Club and Entrepreneurship and Innovation Club and all the other clubs at Sloan. And so they have this program where they brought in 40 to 50 startups that are somehow related to MIT. So some of them were founded by Sloanies and some of them were co-founded by MIT engineers. And they wanted to bring in people to work over the kind of winter break for credit. And so I did that with Wellframe, and that was really what kind of kick-started my digital health craze, I guess it is. And so, on that front, that's how I kind of got into my first kind of job. And then also the Healthcare Club helped me connect. This nonprofit thing that I started before school is called the Boston Young Healthcare Professionals. And it's kind of like a healthcare club that's not related to any school. And so we've kind of integrated a lot of the events between the Healthcare Club and BYHP. We had a big conference, and we had a ton of Sloanies go to it, and a bunch of great speakers were there. And so we're kind of integrating the Healthcare Club into the broader Boston healthcare community. And so in that sense, the Healthcare Club is kind of like the epicenter for that whole thing.
Great, thanks. Another question. There's a bunch of questions, so I guess we'll go with, does the club include non-MBA graduate students? It's an easy one.
Yes, it does. So I'd say, they're obviously the EMBAs are a great resource for us. These are executives who have already made it, pretty high up in their companies, have already had successful careers, and are back at Sloan sort of on a weekend program, and they have expressed interest in becoming, a lot more involved in the club, and they have been. And we also have Sloan Fellows who are sort of here on a one-year fellowship, and they've become involved with the club a lot. MBAs are obviously the biggest portion of it, but we have these other programs involved, as well as, and this is a big initiative going forward. So we're still working on this, but there's an MIT Biotech Club, and trying to figure out ways for us to work with that club as well. Obviously, the interests are fundamentally different between the two clubs, but seeing different ways we can work with people across campus who are interested in healthcare as well. So yes, it's for Sloan Healthcare Club. It's mainly EMBAs. There are several other programs involved, and we're working on actually expanding our reach even further to the broader MIT community.
Great. That was sort of a line with the next question. Does the program work to put together people from different areas of expertise is concerned, and how does the program promote integration amongst, I guess you can talk about the greater MIT and then just people with different interests and backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that given that healthcare, like what Vic mentioned, is such a broad term, and people do, Sloan in general, people just come from so many different backgrounds that, you're going to find people with different areas of expertise within Sloan, and then anyone who's interested in healthcare is pretty much going to be part of the healthcare club. So it's kind of, the Sloan Healthcare Club is kind of just a natural assembly of people with different backgrounds and skill sets, just because it is pretty broad and encompassing. We don't have a separate biotech club, a separate, healthcare providers club. So it's such a broad club to begin with, and then the fact that there are so many people with different backgrounds at Sloan, it sort of is just naturally comes into place that you're going to be interacting with people from different backgrounds, and the club does, try hard to be very open to sort of anything you're interested in. So the conference that we put on every year, it doesn't take a very narrow focus in one part of healthcare versus another. So we'll have, we have another panel, I guess I forgot to mention, is on payer consolidation, right? And some people aren't very interested in payers at all, but there's some people that have very strong interest there. So it's really about what interests you bring, what you want to explore here, and the club's going to provide a platform and support for you to explore those interests in however you want to.
And what about like engagement with other groups outside of Sloan at MIT, or engagement with other opportunities at MIT?
Yep. So one specific example of that is, I think it's tomorrow, is what's being called the East-West pitch. And it was an initiative that was led by a group of first years that LinkedIn, I forget what the program is, but the HSD program, or it's an engineering program at MIT, and they're pitching their technologies to a group of MBA students, and they're trying to hone their skills and kind of learn from the MBA students how to figure out what their business model looks like, and the MBA students are looking for their engineering soulmates to start companies with. And so that's like one specific program that's bringing kind of the two sides of that together. A couple other examples are MIT Hacking Medicine is a group that is not specific to any school at MIT. It's run by Sloanies and undergrads and graduate students in technology, and they hold these hackathons over weekends for, there's a problem statement. So say, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center's CIO has outlined the top 3 challenges with health IT, right? And so, 100 people will get together over the weekend and try to hack through these solutions to those problems. And that's something that is very unique to MIT. It's not unique to MIT Sloan, but MIT Sloan is a huge component of that. And so, like the Sloan Healthcare Club, like I mentioned earlier, is kind of a group that tries to pull together all of these great resources that Sloan has, that MIT as a broader community has, and that Boston has as well. I think that maybe another example is the Media Lab. So I think Paul could talk to the Media Lab. He spent a lot of time last year working in one of their groups that did kind of diagnostics for low resource settings. You want to talk about that quick?
Yeah, I mean, I can. It's kind of. I guess it's a good example of just how. I mean, you don't have to try that hard to sort of get involved with some of these other groups. It was just there was a second year, and he had mentioned that he was, working with people at the Media Lab. He introduced me, and then I sort of did a semester-long project with them, kind of thinking about one of their programs that they were starting, and helping them kind of try to think through a business model. It was kind of like a fellowship type program, but it wasn't necessarily a strict event or something like Hacking Medicine, which I think complements what Vic says. Is like, once you're here, it's just the type of place that MIT is, given sort of a lot of the the technology and a lot of the research that's going on here. You're just going to have those types of opportunities that just pop up naturally, and I'm less involved with it this semester, and it's more just like you have a harder time deciding what you want to do and how to focus your time than finding things to get involved with is I guess how I would put it.
Great, thanks. Another question, I'm going to reword it a little bit, but can you just, you guys are MIT Sloan students, you know a lot about MIT, you don't know a lot about other schools, you may have looked at other schools and done research at other schools, so stick to what you know about MIT and what you think differentiates MIT from some other programs, or what you think the benefits of healthcare at MIT are compared to maybe some other schools that you might have researched, but you're not a student of, so keep it strict to what you like about MIT. Please.
Okay. Overall, just in Sloan in general, the people are amazing. I've never been around such collaborative and warm, helpful people. Immediately just like drawn in by how humble people are and willing to help. So, if you're coming into healthcare from a different space, there's always people that want to talk about what they've been doing. I've certainly been talking about my previous experience with other people and helping recruiting, preparing people for interviews, but similarly I'm talking to other people that are more than willing to share their experiences. That's my main piece.
I would say.
What about in regards to healthcare specifically?
So one thing that I would say there is creativity. So MIT and healthcare specifically, I think it's a really creative entrepreneurial space, and it's something that it's actually it's something that I sensed before I came to MIT, but it took me a little while to appreciate how much was here. And so there are all these groups that are kind of organically coming up with really cool things. And sometimes you have to seek them out a little bit because they're all over the place and there's so many of them. But compared to some of the other schools that I was looking at, MIT has a very unique spin, I think, on healthcare and on entrepreneurship here. There are a lot of opportunities to build companies. A lot of people do that, in their spare time or take, a class and do it there. But I think that's a huge spike here at MIT, and I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so for me specifically, I knew that. So I had worked in life sciences before, but mainly was sort of larger pharma companies. So my goal of going into business school was to transition into industry, but I knew that I wanted to work at a company that was not sort of a giant pharma player. And when it comes down to, I kind of wanted to get out of Boston. So at first that was my priority, but then when it comes down to it, and I thought about the different career opportunities after, and thinking that I wanted to move into sort of the smaller biotech setting. I mean, you can hit 20 companies with a stone from Sloan's campus, and this is sort of one of the best places in the world to be for that type of company. So that, for me, that's sort of what Sloan was offering in terms of professional opportunities.
Yeah, I think for Sloan in particular, you're looking at a couple things. One is action learning. So through the healthcare certificate and through just other opportunities at Sloan, you can really take advantage of a lot of different action learning opportunities. So there are a bunch of labs at Sloan. I'm sure if you've looked on the website, you can see there are a number of different labs that are offered. Specifically, one's focused on healthcare, one being the H lab, the healthcare lab. I'm a first year, so I haven't taken it yet, but I plan to. And so through this lab, you really get hands-on experience working with different companies. And then also there's a G Lab, I think is what it's called. Maybe the second years could correct me. But through the Global Lab, you can get some international exposure, and there are definitely healthcare projects a part of that. And then on the other side of things, I think MIT has a really unique culture and connection with the rest of campus. We've already talked about it. Vic mentioned there's a spirit of entrepreneurship, but like you could really get connected with other parts of the MIT campus at large. So one thing I'm a part of right now is MIT Idea Plus, which is an opportunity that came through the healthcare club, and it's getting involved with new, basically, incubator startup of sorts on MIT's campus, working with postdoc engineers who are seeking business advisors, people that will help them develop their strategy and lay out a business plan for their new technology. So the one I'm working on currently is a new software technology that detects early stage Parkinson's. So I'm going to be helping them more probably next semester, but I mean it's just a really unique culture that the broader MIT campus can bring onto, I guess, the healthcare lens at Sloan.
Great. Another question, you can be brief and answer this. What's been your favorite memory so far with the healthcare-related opportunities? So first years, you don't really, I mean, it's been a couple months, right? And second years, any healthcare memories? Favorite healthcare memories?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I mentioned that sort of this year I'm leading sort of all the panel efforts at the conference, and that's really because last year I sort of led one of the specific panels, and that was sort of a lot of fun to get to put together and sort of work with some of the industry leaders and talk. We talked about sort of ACOs and how those are evolving in the future, and it was really interesting to work with people and sort of set up that panel, and it was just fun overall to watch it play out as sort of we had planned it. Anything?
Oh yeah, we're not on mute. I think my favorite memory so far, I'm really enjoying my healthcare ventures class. So we're doing a project where we're trying to come up with a business around increasing engagement with mental health resources on campuses, and that's been kind of like a heavy subject in some ways, but it's been really, really rewarding. I've had a lot of fun like trying to pull this together, meeting with people at MIT, Harvard, BC, BU, all around Boston, trying to solve this issue, which is like a pretty serious issue, and everybody on my team is really passionate about it, and it just has been not one memory, but like a series of great ones, I think.
Great. Next, unless Maddie or Jessica, if you do have any memories in the past 2 months that are amazing that you want to share, please, by all means.
Way to build it up. No. You can't set it up
We're
like
building
that.
them as we speak.
Yeah.
This is going to be the answer
It's
next
Google
time.
Hangout.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Does the healthcare club provide any Does the healthcare club provide any opportunities to gain insight into public policy formation? What about international experiences? So they briefly mentioned, Jessica mentioned the G Lab and international experiences there where you can travel. What other opportunities are there, international experiences and gain insight into public policy formation?
I mean, so I guess in terms of like formal international experiences, it would probably be through some of these action learning labs that you could sort of do G Lab and find a project. I mean, and that's probably the best sort of formal opportunity. I think like regardless if we have alumni living in other countries and are very receptive to anyone that sends an email. So, it's more about sort of creating a platform for you to come into if there's specific opportunities you are interested in getting into. It's really a platform for you to create your own path if there's something that you are very interested in. And that kind of goes to the policy as well. I mean, none of us really have huge, interest in policy and policy setting. But if that's something that you wanted to get into, then obviously, you can work with the club and we can think about ways and people to introduce you to learn more about that or get involved into more of that. But it's more about, does the club at this point have someone who's really engaged in that? And I think right now we don't have sort of a lot of people thinking a lot about policy.
I will say, so a lot of the work that I did before school was like on the edges of policy, and there are a lot of economists here at MIT that were really a huge part of the Affordable Care Act. So he's kind of controversial these days, but Jonathan Gruber is an economist here, and they call him Mr. Mandate. He was the guy who convinced the administration that the individual mandate was required to pay for the Affordable Care Act. And so I sought him out and met with him, and then he became kind of like a lightning rod political figure after that, and I haven't talked to him since. But there are a lot of opportunities to do that. You can also take classes at the Harvard School of Public Health if you're really, really interested in the topic. And there's a great professor here who teaches global public health classes. And so she just had a class this past semester that focuses on policy in rural developing countries. And so there's definitely an angle to that as well.
And so building off that, you can take up to 3 classes outside of Sloan. So any of the MIT graduate schools and any of the Harvard graduate schools. So the Kennedy School, which is their policy school, or the public health school as well. Great. Next question. What kinds of advantages do you think Sloan has on healthcare comparing with other schools which actually have medical schools?
I guess I don't know what the medical school part has to do with it. I think it's one of the best things that Sloan has is, like I mentioned, like I worked at Alnylam over the summer, which was like one of the most exciting biotechs going right now, and that place has 4 or 5 different Sloanies there. And I mean, I think I met a couple people from other schools as well, but I think, being in the area and having an alumni base that's interested in healthcare is, for me personally, what I've seen great advantage for. And I mean, like Jeff said, we all go to Sloan. We can't comment intelligently about specific advantages, but for me, I think the alumni base and being able to reach out to people across a lot of different healthcare sectors and a lot of different companies, and it's funny, you're going to find a Sloanie at like any company within healthcare, and everyone is super responsive and very helpful. So I mean, unless you're an actual doctor that is going to really be on the medical side of things, I don't see too much of a
there also are some opportunities to work in hospitals. I'm taking Intro to Ops right now, and our professor has done multiple partnerships with MGH, looking at their like patient throughputs, and they've had different students do internships to kind of like analyze the stuff there. So some of our professors do still have hospital partnerships. But something that I'm really impressed with so far is just MIT's connection to the broader community right around here. And one thing is that, like, I think Vic already mentioned this, but the Winternship program, I actually just ran over from a meeting of that big mixer where there was probably about 150 people from both the startups and the students, and I would say about 15 of those companies were healthcare companies. So we're just seeing kind of a spike in broader demand for healthcare, and the people there want to be involved with MIT students.
Great, thanks. Next question. Is there an impetus within the healthcare club for Internet of Things, big data, cloud to address EHRs and increase patient visibility? Do you know anyone interested in doing things?
Question.
Mouthful.
Sorry, I was muted. One of the panels that we're going to be running at this year's conference is on EHRs, patient data, some of the potential, patient empowerment, or I guess we're talking about is like, how can patients have better access to, their own medical information on one hand, and as well as like when you start to collect this great like longitudinal set of patient data and then compare it, and then even complement it with some of this real-time data with wearables and things like that, like we're going to start creating a great database of patient data, and obviously there's concerns and limitations to what you can do with it and what you can say about it. So, but I think that conversation is ongoing, and it's something that we're going to be talking about at this year's conference. Is as we start to build a lot of these powerful databases, what theoretically could we do with it, and then what kind of changes do we need to make, and I guess to this policy point, like what needs to happen for us to allow us to actually act and use this data. So I think there is like a lot of that going on. And then there's several like analytics professors that have done, so I took a class in data analytics, and the professor has done a ton of work with using the Framingham Heart Study, which is sort of a great database, and using that patient data to create sort of predictive models, and he's facing a lot of the same questions that I just talked about, like what do you do with these predictive models? And that's kind of the next step and sort of a conversation that we hope to have at the conference.
Great, thanks. Did you guys have something else to add, or no?
Nope.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the health care certificate? More specifically, how does it provide students with the hands-on experience mentioned on the website? And then once in the program, how can you work towards obtaining the certificate? So the healthcare certificate.
You want me to? I can jump in. So the healthcare certificate, for one thing, you can kind of just jump into it once you get to MIT. It's a program that has, on the website, a series of required classes that you kind of do in your second semester, third semester, and you add in a whole bunch of electives along the way. Um, you know, the question was about how it delivers on the hands-on type of is that something that did I mishear you there? So basically, I think that what they're getting at there is the action learning classes. So healthcare lab, healthcare ventures, global health lab, G lab, all those classes are hands-on, and you're either starting your own company or you are partnering with a local company. So some of the projects have been with Partners Healthcare, IRA Health, large healthcare digital health companies in Boston, and the international ones are beyond. So the hands-on part is part of everything at MIT Sloan. You can't, every single program has action learning components to it, and so I think that that's a big part of it. And so it's flexible. It's something that a lot of people can fit into their schedule and still do a lot of other cool classes too. I don't know if there's anything else specific to it, but it's a component of the healthcare world here at Sloan, and there are a number of students that are doing it. So I don't know if you guys have anything else to add.
That's great. How common is it for MBA students in the healthcare program or a certificate or not, just interested in healthcare, to take a life science class at MIT to help improve their understanding of sciences and drug development? Do you guys know anyone that's done that, or does
We did one. So she's just making life sciences.
So that's a Sloan class.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are some Sloan classes that get into like drug development. So there's one that's like principles and practices of drug development. So there are classes taught specifically for MBA students about drug development and what that path looks like for people who aren't maybe as familiar with the science and sort of general types of studies and things that you need to do to sort of bring a drug to market. I don't know. I guess I don't see people going across campus and taking MIT classes in like biochemistry and things like that. No, I mean but there's also, I take a class right now with the HST program, and it's called Evaluation of a Biomedical Business Concept, and there's actually a lot of HST students and engineering students, and that is kind of a mix of how do you evaluate technologies as well as a very just early stage business concept. So that kind of bridges the gap, I guess, between the business world as well as getting into some things like what's the IP look like on this technology. So I'd say like people aren't taking like hardcore life science classes, but there are a number of classes that sort of bridge the gap a little bit.
Just mention what the HST program is.
There are also students who are taking engineering courses on MIT's campus. I don't know of anyone that's taking like biology or chemistry, but like there are definitely Sloan students that are also taking engineering classes.
Great. Thanks. So briefly, can you share what kind of roles, functions people assume at organizations post-graduation? Is it basically strategy? Is it marketing? Is it corporate finance? Is it leadership rotational programs? What do you see in the past have your counterparts, classmates, alumni done?
I mean, I think everything you just said is people have done. There are people that go into rotational programs. I have a good friend that's going into the Genzyme Leadership Development Program. We have so the two last year healthcare club presidents, one's at Genentech doing maybe finance or one of the rotational programs, but there was someone else before that's at Genentech doing the finance program. The other club leader is at Third Rock, so more of like a VC / sort of startup company or company helping sort of spin out new biotech and healthcare companies. The role that I was looking to take or I was in at Alnylam was kind of a cross, since they're a small company, had elements of commercial strategy as well as program management and business planning and analytics. You see people going into business development roles. So it all depends on what you're interested in, and if it's a big company, there's going to be things like leadership development programs where they want you to get into the company, see what the company is all about, and sort of have the capacity to rotate you around for a 2-year period, and kind of obviously you're adding value to the company, but you're also just learning on your own. And then if it's a smaller company, they're not going to have like a rotational program. So people go into every single type of role imaginable, and it's really about where people see themselves and what they want to get out of their experience after Sloan.
Great. So this was sort of touched upon before, and it might be a little redundant, but tell us how often you have opportunities to collaborate with hospitals. And
I mean, I think so. I think Sloan is very, very well known for their like hospital ops. So one of the Retzef Levy, a professor here, he teaches ops. I think he even teaches the core ops, and he's a very well-known figure in the hospital operations space. So there's the healthcare lab that we mentioned. On a lot of those projects, you could be in a hospital helping them, with their operations, with the business of operating a hospital. And so there's tons of opportunities. It's all about, like I said, I mean, as you mentioned, it's about what you want to get involved with, and if that's something that you want to get involved with, Sloan is super well known for hospital operations.
Another part of the question was about working with doctors to develop new medical devices, and I think you'd see a lot of that maybe through the media lab, through certain product design classes that are specifically geared towards that, as well as I mean, there are medical doctors in the MBA curriculum in the class that take time off of residency or take time before going to their fellowships and do a 2-year MBA. So, but
yeah, Vic's in this. Vic mentioned healthcare ventures. It's a class, and we had, and I was in the class too. And there's doctors there who have like a device, or engineers who have a device, and yeah, it's more as an engineer than a doctor, but they have some sort of device or technology, and they're there and looking to think if there's a business around it, and they're in that class for that purpose. And if you're in that class, then you can sort of join up with it on a team with them and help them think through, how they would develop a business plan and think through commercializing whatever they come to the table with.
Great. Another question that's been touched upon, but you can quickly go over it again quickly. The alumni network in the healthcare space, how have you interacted with them? Are jobs primarily discovered through CDO or through a combination?
I think it depends on the size of the company. So big companies, your Genzymes, Genentechs, Biogens, they all have strong ties with the CDO. They're coming onto campus and giving these formalized company presentations. They have interviewing through the CDO. So that's very well established. What is less formalized, and we're really formalizing it now, and like I said, we had a alumni breakfast, and alumni are kind of, now that we've started to set up this platform, like alumni are kind of coming out of the woodwork, like, oh, I heard you had this, like add me to the list, and we've actually developed from nothing like a list of several hundred alumni working in healthcare. And I got my job at Alnylam. I worked directly with a Sloaney. He was like Sloan 2003. Another summer opportunity I was looking for was at a smaller biotech, and it was another Sloaney. So, and those people kind of get in contact with the healthcare club directly because they know that that's sort of the best way. And if they don't, they go to CDO, and the CDO forwards that to the healthcare club. So it is a great way, alumni, and then the healthcare club in general, I guess, is a great way for networking and finding actual job opportunities.
Next question. You mentioned this earlier too, where there's the trek out to the West Coast. How about biotech healthcare companies on the West Coast and interactions with that?
Yeah. So. Okay. Because I'm planning the West Coast trek this year, and I definitely want to go back to the West Coast. So I am pretty in tune with West Coast companies, both SF and LA primarily. There are also companies in Seattle as well and along the West Coast, San Diego. But our West Coast trek this year is going to primarily focus on San Francisco. So we're going to visit a number of companies, probably Biogen, Google Ventures, a couple of health tech startups, Genentech, a few others as well. So there's definitely a good connection that we have with the West Coast. Also through the CDO, there are a number of West Coast opportunities that come up, both formalized rotation programs, whether it's Genentech or Amgen, among others, Medtronic, to also some informal opportunities as well. So if you think about our alumni network, like obviously people will stay on the East Coast, but a ton of people also move out to the West Coast as well. So I've noticed that.
If you look at the major cities that people are going to after graduation, New York, Boston, Bay Area are the three biggest, and they're pretty evenly distributed between those three for the largest portions of people staying in the U.S. They're obviously spread all over the U.S., but those are definitely the three biggest.
Yeah, and just thinking about our alumni, like there's just a huge support network there. I don't know if you've heard of this, but Sloanies Helping Sloanies is like totally true. I've reached out to a number of Sloanie alumni on the West Coast just trying to get connected and learn more about the healthcare industry in Los Angeles and in the Bay Area as well, and the Sloanies are super helpful, so I would say, yeah, plenty of opportunities.
Great. Thank you. So one other question was application advice that you give to healthcare-focused prospective students. I'll take that one. Advice is to follow the directions, answer the questions we ask, and put together a good application. It does not matter to us what you want to do in the future. We're basing our applications on what you've done in the past, as the past is a predictor of your future success. Because many times people come to the business school, they start, they realize there's this whole other world out there they didn't realize existed, and then change their mind. So we're not going to focus on what you want to do in the future as part of our application process or admissions process. We're drawing to a close, so if you both want to unmute yourselves, if people have questions, want to know more about Healthcare Club, or want to talk more in depth about a certain question, can we give the Healthcare Club email address so they can email that directly? I'll say, if you have admissions questions, mbaadmissions@sloan.mit.edu is the best place to email. And
we're working on finding that email address.
Sweet. If you Google MIT Sloan Healthcare Club, you'll find it.
Yeah, and I'd say just like you can email one of us directly, and so my email is paulcap, Paulcapp.
You really want to give that to hundreds of people, Paul?
That's fine. I'll just forward along to Duffy. So if you have specific questions or want to get, because at the end of the day, the Healthcare Club email just goes to all of us anyway. So you can email me, and I can sort of point you in the right direction. If something I said specifically resonates with you, I'm happy to talk further.
Sloan.healthcare.admissions. So the official website or application or email address is sloan.healthcare.admissions@mit.edu, and that'll go to basically our it'll go to them.
Go to Maddie, Jess, and Paul. Basically, there's the admissions rep for the healthcare clubs. That's why the word admissions is in there, not to confuse people. So if you guys have questions, reach out to that. If you have admissions questions, mbaadmissions@sloan.mit.edu. We thank you very much for joining us tonight, and have a great night. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks.